Hello everyone and welcome to Student Hub Live. I'm Rob Moore. I'm a tutor with the business school, and also you may have seen me in some of the workshops that we run on Student Hub Live. So it's great to see you here today to have a discussion about rethinking my career. How can you make the most out of your modules and your study to enhance your career? Today I've got some real experts with me, so some of the team that you would be talking to when selecting your different courses or qualifications, and some experts who give you advice on the careers and how you can make the most out of your qualifications. So in the chat we've got Chan and we've got Robbie. Chan works in the careers advice, and she's going to be answering your questions that you might have about what you can do with your qualifications or where you can get more advice. And we've got Robbie, who's one of the managers in our student support team. And Robbie's going to answer any questions you might have more broadly about study, but today specifically focused on your careers. And then of course we've got HJ, our regular, who is looking after the chat, and HJ will be bringing your questions to us. So we've got a number of you in the chat box at the moment, and you're here from right across the UK, up in Yorkshire, Dorset, East Midlands. Great to see you all with us. And you'll notice there will be some questions that will be popping up that you can answer those questions directly, or you can ask any questions that you want. I'd just like to give you a heads up about the questions and taking part in the chat though. This is a public forum, so just be very careful about any personal information that you might want to share. So we don't want any personal information going in the chat box, as it will be available to other people to see. But we really do want to hear from you, and we want to hear your questions, your comments, and get involved as much as you can. Working with me on the panel today, I have Ian and I have Justin. So Ian works in student support, and there's Ian, you can see waving in the bottom left. Ian works in student support, and almost any question that you have when you're studying with the OU, you'll be put through to the student support team. And Ian's one of our experts that will answer your question, or if he can't answer it, he knows a man who can, or a lady who can, which is more likely. So any questions you've got, we can pass those on to Ian through the chat. And then we have Justin, who's one of our expert careers advisors. Justin is able to give you those specific hints on how to make the best use of the skills that you develop, where your university degree can take you, and how to make best use of it. So before we get into the discussion, I'm going to ask HJ to let us know what's being said in the chat at the moment, HJ.
Good morning. Well, there's lots going on in the chat as normal, which is absolutely fantastic. So Kelvin joined us very early and enthusiastically this morning, which is great to hear. David joined us from what he calls a rather wet Glasgow. It seems that things have turned from our last session where we were all enjoying the sun. Beverly's from Yorkshire. She's sharing some digital chocolate and cake, which she always does, which is very generous. So keep that digital chocolate and cake coming. I absolutely love it. Stella's just submitted her third TMA for first year law, wow, which is absolutely amazing. Don't you get like such a relief hitting that submit button and knowing all that hard work? You can relax, you can think about other things until about 5 minutes later when you're worrying about what's going to come back, but that's normal. And Claire's joining us. She's off work unwell, so we wish her all the best in a speedy recovery. So we've got people studying lots of different modules. Now, as people have been doing in the chat, introducing yourselves, if you haven't introduced yourself yet, we'd love to know where you're from, what you're studying. It'll be a great session today. Robbie and Chan in the chat will help us answer your questions, and we'll be asking some questions as well. And we'd love to know your thoughts, comments, and questions. So we're going to have a great session today. And oh, someone's already started our debate on dark and white chocolate. I'm not going to talk about that yet. We'll leave that alone.
Oh dear, Isabella's not here to have that debate at the moment. So those of you who are regular on Student Hub Live will know that Isabella and I run a lot of workshops, and the debate on dark and white chocolate is ongoing and will be going for a very long time. So the first topic we want to talk about is, why are we doing this? Why are we studying with the OU? And I noticed from the chat we already have some students who are brand new. You haven't submitted your first assignment yet. Some you're perhaps getting towards the end of your first module, so you're getting towards the final assignment. So it's good to see a range of people have joined us. So we're going to start the conversation. I'm going to go to Ian first, and I'm going to ask Ian to talk us through the types of questions that that get asked when students first phone up. So Ian, tell us about the first contact with students when they're thinking of studying with us.
Yes, thanks, Rob. For me, that first contact is really, really, really important. There's a lot to know, there's a lot to learn, there's a lot of information out there. So for me, that first early contact to really learn more about our students, know about their individual circumstances. Every one of them is different. Some are working, some are studying full time. We've got brand new inquiries, we've got postgraduate students, and it's really just understanding more about our students and using that information to kind of tailor the conversation. I might be speaking to someone who has never heard of the Open University before. They've just seen an advert on TV. What's this? Don't know anything at all. I might be speaking to someone who's just completed a master's degree and they're asking about the graduation ceremony. And it's really all the student's journey, all the touch points from there, unless it's specifically about the module materials, the content. Obviously, that's yourself, Rob, and our tutors. And I do not give advice. That is not my role. If I feel in the conversation that the student at that point is going to benefit from some advice, that's where I would be doing a handover to another department. But it could be Justin, could be careers. It all depends very much on the advice that's needed. So really, it's a frontline role, but it encompasses a hell of a lot. All the information right from the start of the journey right to the end, and everything in between. In a nutshell.
Thank you for that, Ian. And as you can see, the questions going across the bottom, why are you studying? So when we get to the end of this short topic, we'll look at some of the reasons why you have decided to come and study with the OU. So Justin, when students come along, they quite often want to link their studies with a career outcome. So can you talk us through the sorts of conversations that you might have and some of the things that you might suggest people check out when they're looking to study for a particular purpose?
Yeah, so thanks for that, Rob. A really interesting question. I think we get students coming to us, really looking at a variety of different motivations for their career. We actually do a survey. We ask our students right at the start of their studies what their kind of career, what their motivation is for their studies. And although we do have some students who are doing it purely, out of their own interest. So we probably get about 1 in 5. Looking at that. But quite often, sometimes even when they're doing it out of their own interest, later on in their studies, they sort of decide, they might want to look at particular careers, and quite often we can help them, support them to look at different career paths they might be able to do with their career. As I say, we can show the chart. If that's okay, which gives the different motivations. So we actually find the largest number of our students are actually career changers. So quite often, it's somebody who's looking at perhaps a second or third career. And sometimes, as I say, they're starting their course, out of interest, but they may develop, particular ideas through that. And, as I say, they can use the resources that we've got. So, kind of careers have got loads of kind of resources on our website to help students really look at what they can do with their degree and the different paths onto that. So it's really important, if you do have particular career ideas, do your research early on. Make sure you're on the right path, towards that with your degree. I mean, as I say, with the majority of degrees, I mean, it's estimated that 70% of graduate jobs that are out there don't require a specific degree. They're more looking at the kind of skills and knowledge that you're developing from your degree. So any OU degree can really open up a lot of options. But obviously some careers may obviously require certain kind of degree paths. So it's worthwhile kind of doing your research, even talking to us about that. And just checking that you're on that right kind of career path, so that's really important. Couple of examples. The psychology degree we have has got BPS accreditation, so that's the British Psychological Society. So that's really important if you're planning to go on to, say, kind of chartered areas of psychology, becoming a clinical psychologist. And, obviously for areas like teaching, there may be particular requirements there. So, obviously sometimes if you do have particular kind of career paths in mind, it's really important, to do your research and, kind of talk those through with us.
Yeah. I've got a personal example here. I think I would fit into two of those categories. I think I would fit into the career developer and the career changer. Way back, last century, God, that makes me sound old. Last century, I was working as a manager in a factory. And that's where I met the OU. It was a career development opportunity, and I did my first professional certificate in management with the Open University, and it was great fun, and I loved it. Unfortunately, you get hooked. Once we've got you, you don't get away, and I got addicted to study, and I went on and did an MBA, and then it became a career change. And what I actually did was I took the MBA that I gained with the OU, and I applied to become a tutor. And that's why I'm sat here today, because I enjoyed it that much that I wanted to carry on being part of it. So I developed that qualification into this fine figure of a man that sat in front of you today. But yeah, so I fit well into that. The other thing, of course, that's fairly new in qualifications are the apprenticeships. And we have a number of apprenticeships that are accredited now. In fact, Robbie, who's on the chat box, he's one of my apprentices. I'm actually his tutor. And he's doing the Chartered Management Degree Apprenticeship through the Open University, and the Open University is sponsoring him through it. So if you've got any questions about apprenticeships, ask him how he's getting on. I haven't given him his last result yet, so I won't do it live on air. I'll wait till afterwards, so I'll give him that one. So just something you mentioned there, Justin, about the open degree. A lot of students are not really aware of what that is. So they might be thinking that they have to follow a named degree. So could you just give me a minute or two on what the open degree is and where the benefits are of studying that type of qualification?
Yeah, so most of our, kind of degrees that we offer are, particular fixed subjects, or, that have, kind of named degrees, as we call them. But something else we do offer is the open degree, and that basically offers a more flexible kind of study path. So it allows you to, study different modules. We have some students who have particular interests, across different subject areas, and that open degree, allows them a bit of flexibility, around, kind of what they're interested in. And also that can be really attractive to employers. So, we found that, most employers aren't put off by somebody doing an open degree. They're actually more interested in, what skills and knowledge they've developed from a degree. And, sometimes that combination of modules can be very, attractive to employers. So it's really important, when you do apply to, kind of jobs or opportunities you might be looking at, is to really emphasize the skills, knowledge you've developed. It might be particular modules that employer might be interested in. So as I say, I think the open degree can offer some real flexibility. It can help you shape a degree, that's more related to your kind of interests and, your kind of skill set. But I'd also say, just make sure you do check out, if you've got a particular career path in mind, make sure that you do check that your degree is obviously fitting those requirements. So for example, as I say, things like, say primary or secondary teaching may have very, kind of specific requirements, around, kind of what degrees or, modules or emphasis of modules they're looking for. So, that's worth, kind of doing your research on, checking out with, kind of training providers you might be looking at as well. But as I say, overall, I think the open degree offers a really attractive way of developing, a degree that's shaped, to your kind of needs and interests, really.
And that's the open degree is something that's unique to us. We're the only university that can offer that sort of flexibility, and definitely something to consider there. So I can see that we're getting lots of comments, lots of questions coming in. So HJ, what's going on in the chat?
Fantastic conversation on our topic of why we chose to study with the OU and our chosen topics, and there's some fantastic responses, some of which follow sort of my path and journey as well. Some seem completely different to me, but I'm sure there's loads of reasons that we've all heard and we all can all understand. So Kelvin's studying level 2 forensic psychology. Kelvin's reasons for studying is to have a career in forensic psychology, which sounds fantastic. David James is studying business management with a focus on leadership practice. So David actually hasn't studied since 2005-2007, and says, after working my way up to head of department and now having time off work, it felt like it was the right time to finish my studies and get my degree. Claire, similar journey to me, started with one subject but moved to another. So Claire started with psychology but moved to sociology. Sarah, I think this is something that's probably going to come up, and a lot of people will understand in this current environment that Sarah's had a redundancy from a 30-year career, so she decided that was the right time to retrain. And Penelope set out to study psychology, but kept changing her mind just because there's so many different and interesting options with the OU. And Stella, I think this is absolutely fantastic. She says, my eldest daughter went to university and she said she'd like to do the same. So her family encouraged her to sign up to the OU. She said it was nerve-wracking, but I've learned so much in my first year. And that's great when you've got family behind you and encourage you, because sometimes you want to do something, but you need your friends and family to give you that push. And I know from speaking to Stella that she's really pleased she's done it.
Absolutely, and we've had comments from people saying they wish they'd started studying earlier. So, as I said, I started studying with the OU in 1995. I was one of the junior students at the age of 15, obviously, in 1995. But yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity to join at any age. And I love it when I get students and they're saying, oh, I'm studying because my son or daughter is studying at the same time. And it's lovely when they graduate together. They're going to each other's graduation ceremonies, and that's been fantastic. The next topic we're going to look at is how do you choose your next module? How do you pick what to do next? And my inventive title is Pin or Purpose. Do you stick a pin in the prospectus and choose whatever comes next? Or do you make a plan? Do you pick what is going to do the best for you? So what do you consider? Some students, and this is not the recommended approach, is they look at how many assignments are due and whether or not it's got an exam. And that's how they pick the next module, not the one we recommend. What we want you to do is think what you need to get out of your module and what you want to get out of the qualification, and that should be driving your choices. So I'm going to go back to Ian now, and I want Ian to talk us through the types of conversation that he has with students about choosing what comes next and how to make sure it's the best thing for them. So over to you, Ian.
Yeah, thank you. For me, it's really understanding whether somebody's already had that advice or someone's already done that research themselves. A lot of people have got a good idea of where they want to go to. They've got a good idea of which modules they want to choose to get there. And so it's understanding, have you had that advice? Have you got options that you're not certain of? And it's me trying to understand that aspect of it, which will then drive the next stage of the process. Again, we're talking ostensibly about careers today, so it's very likely it could be a handoff to Justin and his colleagues. I just want to touch on psychology with counselling again, because Justin brought it up, and it is a qualification that gets discussed a lot. And again, why it's important to have done that research, because psychology with counselling, as Justin said, is a psychology degree. It's to lead to a specific pathway within psychology. And a lot of students want to become a counsellor, and we offer a foundation degree in counselling. So again, understanding the ultimate goal will then kind of drive the rest of the conversation. When it comes to choosing modules, I think a brilliant tool to use is our Openlearn website. A lot of people don't realize that if you go onto our Openlearn website and just type in your module code, for the vast majority of our modules, there's an extract on there. So you can even get an idea of the content of the module now, ready for your studies in October. So that's a very good resource that I like to use. As well. And if you haven't used Openlearn yet, then definitely, especially if your course doesn't start again till October, or your module's about to finish in June, it's great to use that time just to prepare for the next module. I've drifted off topic somewhat here, Rob, sorry. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And we're going to be touching back on Openlearn in a few minutes. I'm going to talk you through an example there. Before I do that though, Justin, we've got a range of tools that the OU have created, and they're available for students to use to check, are they doing the right thing, are they going the right direction? So could you give us an overview of some of the tools? And I know that Chan and Robbie are going to be popping some links into the chat to some of these tools that you might want to try out.
Yeah, Rob, I think that's really good to talk about. As I say, I think, quite often with, say modules you might be looking at, I think it's important to think about, where your interests and strengths are. Employers are sometimes going to be looking at, what degree you're doing, and as I say, the skills and knowledge you've developed. Not often so much, specific modules, but sometimes, as I say, it's good to think about, where that module's, what knowledge you're going to develop and what skills you're going to develop from that. And as you've said, Robert, we offer a lot of, kind of useful tools, to kind of help you, plan your kind of career path there. And as I say, a couple that I think are really important to, kind of mention is one's called Kudos, which is actually on our website, and that's really like a career matching tool. So it kind of looks at your skills and interests, and tries to look at how those can link towards particular careers. I mean, obviously it can't tell you what career you should do, but it can make sort of helpful suggestions. It can give you an idea of particular paths that you might want to explore. So I think that's really good to have a go at. There's also something called the Prospects website, And they've also got like a career planning tool on there, which is called Prospects Planner, which is really good in terms of, directing you towards particular careers that, kind of match your kind of skills and interests. Also, we've got like a tool called Pulse. And as I say, some of these links you should be getting in the chat box. Pulse asks you kind of various questions to determine what stage of career readiness you're at. So are you at that kind of stage where you're just, trying to get a better understanding of who you are and, what kind of skills you can offer employers? Or are you at the stage where you're beginning to explore particular career ideas a bit more? So you might be thinking about, maybe doing some work shadowing or getting experience or doing a bit more research into those ideas. Or you might be at the stage where, yes, you know what you want to do, but you need kind of support, looking at applying for jobs or, doing interviews and CVs and things like that. So that's really helpful because that tool then directs you to loads of resources that apply to each stage you may be at. So, straight away, you're kind of directed to a wealth of resources. And as I say, we've even got things like CV builders. We've got, kind of skills audits you can have a go at to really look at, kind of what skills you've developed through your course. And also importantly, what skills that you've developed, kind of prior to your course. So, lots of our students have had, kind of careers before they started at the OU. So, they've develop skills through there. So I think it's really important to get engaged with the website. Have a good look at that. Loads of resources to help you explore ideas there. We've also got like a career database called Opportunity Hub. So, there you can find, you can search for graduate opportunities, you can search for work experience, you can search for voluntary opportunities, and all those are aimed at our students. So we've got loads of employers who are particularly interested in, recruiting our students. It's worthwhile having a look at, some of those resources.
So we've got a real good mix of resources that are available to students, all freely available. One of the things I would say is that we have so much at the OU that is available. Sometimes it's difficult to find it. And even as tutors, we don't know where everything is. So my advice to you is do what I do. I go to the help centre, and that's when you go to Student Home, there's a link to the help centre at the top. Type in what you're looking for, and that's a great starting point to find a lot of the tools and the advice that we're talking about. And of course, that will take you to the careers website that Justin's talking about as well, where a lot of these links sit. I'm going to nip back to something Ian said about Openlearn. We like a bit of Openlearn. Openlearn is a free-to-use resource. You do need to be registered, but it's free. If you're a student, you're already registered. But it's a real wealth of information. It's got a mixture of old information from previous courses, current information from current courses that give you a bit of a taster, and specifically written content. So we're going to show you one example on the screen now, and it's called the supply chain game. And this is a simulation that we run as part of our postgraduate course in supply chain management. It's a simplified version of it, but it's free to have a play with. You can go and see how good you are at running a supply chain and managing products and raw materials through it. So Openlearn, lots of advice. There's study advice, there's time management advice, there's I particularly like the 60-second adventures in thought. So go to Google, type in 60 seconds adventures in thought, and you hear David Mitchell bring some very complicated topics down to simple areas. And if you're new to the OU, there's a lovely, what we call a badged open course. So it's an Openlearn course that when you complete it, you get a little tick on your profile that says you complete it. And it's all the questions that tutors get asked in the first 6 months from students condensed down into a short 6-hour study. And it's really useful for finding things out like, what's a TMA? How do I send it in? How do I get feedback? So Openlearn, a great resource to explore. And it's a great way to see what courses are coming up as well. So HJ, what are people saying now? Have we got any questions at the moment about that topic?
Well, we're having a good think in the chat about what we're saying about the link between the careers we want and what we're studying as well. So some of us have very clear career ambitions. I know Kelvin wants to have a career in forensic psychology. Claire actually wants to tutor DD 102 students in the future. She said that was my main reason for coming back to the OU. And she says, poor old City Road gets such a hard time from students, but it gave me love for sociology. There I had the confidence to state what my real ambition is, and that's absolutely fantastic when something inspires you and makes you go, I want to do that, I want to be that person, teaching other people and sharing my knowledge. I think that's absolutely amazing, and big love for City Road from me. I absolutely love DD 102 and talking about City Road. Beverly said, I'm studying environmental science for my love of rewilding and animal conversation in terms of climate change, which again I think is absolutely fantastic. Finding something you're passionate about and love, and getting yourself all the knowledge you need to be successful in that area. And I like what Alexander said as well. Alexander said, I knew from a young age I wanted to do a career in journalism. However, like many things, it got pushed back and ended up doing another career. He said, it's only in the last couple of years that I wanted to be a journalist, as what he was doing got boring. So he looked around and chose to study with the Open University, and he's determined to get his English degree and national journalism certificates to enter the realms of journalism, which is absolutely fantastic. I mean, that's really great to hear when you realise what you're doing may not be for you, may have had enough of it. It happens to all of us or some of us, and you decide now's time for a change. And I think maybe we can give some advice to David as well, because David said earlier, I'm studying because I need to build confidence, and I used to love maths at school. So this was my first choice, but looking at psychology and philosophy in the future, he says there's so many modules that seem interesting. My problem is finding a clear career path, especially when my mind keeps changing. I know how he feels, and I'm sure a lot of us does. What would our advice to David be in his instance? Is there any gems that we can give him that may help him have some clarity?
Oh, I
I think
don't
this
know.
is yours,
Ian, what would you
Justin.
say?
Well, something as specific as this. This is why we have trained careers advisors. This is exactly the moment when it's my role to understand somebody's goals and motivations. I can provide all the information that they need, but if they need advice, if they've got options, if they need which direction do I take at this point? Which direction do I take at this point? This is where you need someone who's trained specifically to give that direct advice. So for me, the way that conversation went, it's quite clear. Maybe a careers consultation with our careers advisors, something like that, to really explore as
Okay, and
goals and make sure
careers
that we've got a set plan.
consultations, is that something that you arrange? How would a student go about getting a careers consultation?
I
Yeah.
refer
So,
quite a few students. Sorry, just to go for it. It's your
no,
role.
you go first.
That's what
All I
happens
was
when you
going to
get
do is
lots of
mention the help
experts, it's
centre.
great.
All I was going to do is mention the help centre, Rob. You brought it up earlier. Again, you can request a careers consultation via the help centre, and there's a lot of other careers tools within the help centre that are really, really useful. So, but anyway, Justin.
Yeah, so you can put a request through the help centre. You can actually book online appointments through our database opportunity hub as well. So you can actually book them directly through that. Or as I say, if you don't feel confident doing that, just put a request through the help desk, and we'll get in touch with you. To arrange an appointment with you. And we also do things like email guidance. So, if you feel that's better for you, we can answer your queries like that. I mean, going back to David, yes, I'd say, definitely have a chat with us, but also, do your research out there. I think it's quite normal that, people change their mind a lot. Not everybody knows what they want to do when they do their degree. But I think, just kind of get out there, do things, get involved in things, volunteer, or maybe try and do a bit of work shadowing. If you can, try and talk to people doing the job that you're interested in. Try and get a bit of an insight into it. But as I say, don't get too stressed, that you don't know the exact, kind of career path that you want to take. Career paths generally aren't all in a straight line. They're not linear. They take you off in different directions. I think the main thing is, doing some reflection, thinking about, what, skills you've developed, what are you good at, what really interests you. Do some research. I've talked about loads of resources, that you can do. As I say, our website, prospects. Have a look at the National Career Service. Sorry, go on.
Those of you who are out there on the chat box, were you aware that we had all these career resources available? Were you aware that you could book a one-to-one appointment? And it's useful to take advantage of these things, because I must admit, in my first degree, I didn't realise the amount of support that was actually out there. We're going to move on to the next topic, which is employability skills. So I almost call these the accidental skills. It's not specifically what you're doing in your qualification or your module, but these are the skills that we develop that are really valuable. And I think we've got a graphic talking about the types of things that employers really like to see. So what do they like about OU graduates? What are the types of things that naturally come out of study? So the sort of thing that jumps to mind for me, things like time management. Believe me, you can't be a good student with the OU if you haven't got good time management. You will find it very difficult to get to the end. To be honest, you don't start with a good time management, but you finish with it. And particularly in my subject area, the ability to justify arguments and put points forward is really important. So I'm going to come back to Justin now to talk about what employers look for. So what do they like about OU graduates? What do they like about OU students? So this is separate to things like an accountancy course where it's a specific qualification. What do employers generally like?
I think OU students are really attractive to employers, and quite often they've shown a lot of resilience in terms of doing their course. And as you said, Rob, time management has been really important, because quite often they may be managing that alongside other responsibilities. So maybe they're working, or maybe they've got caring responsibilities. And as I say, that thing of being resilient, I think is really kind of valuable to employers. And I think, quite often OU students have got that in buckets and spades. That basically, quite often, they've decided to go back to education after many years not being in education. They've proved themselves at being able to, study at that level and do it through distance learning, which can be tough, because you've not got your other students around you all the time. It's a different experience to maybe studying at other universities. So they prove themselves to be resilient. They've got good communication skills online, especially because they've had to take part in things like forums and classes online. They've had to kind of manage their own time. They've also as I say, that those quite often they're coming from other careers that they've been involved in. So they've got loads of skills there. If I was comparing to maybe an 18-year-old who just started university, with very little experience. Quite often, OU students have had, other careers where they've developed loads of transferable skills. They've been able to manage projects, or they've worked effectively in teams. All those sorts of skills are really valuable to employers. And as you say, as that graphic, that you showed, Rob, we've got loads of kind of comments from employers saying why they're particularly interested in our students. So I think that's really important.
Love it. And I think we've also got another, we call it the employability framework. So if we could have that up on the screen, that'd be great. So these are some of the elements that we have established that studying with the OU develops these different skills, and they're not specific to a specific subject or a specific area of study, but these are things that would naturally be developed. So Ian, I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. Imagine a youngster, because we're getting a lot of young people now who are choosing the OU as as their route through university. So rather than students who are in employment coming back, we're now getting students at 18, 19 coming through. If they come to talk to you, or they contact you and want you to know about the employability skills that are suitable for people starting their career, what sort of things would you talk to them about? What would you tell them that an OU degree will give them that perhaps they wouldn't get from a campus university?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, the main, you both brought it up, and I'll third it. Time management. Finding time for your studies around all your other responsibilities is a big part of my conversations that I have with students. I know exactly how many hours there are in a week. I know I factor in people's commute times. I do a lot of things. We really calculate time. And so managing your time effectively is absolutely something that you will have to do. It's a skill that you will develop naturally as you progress. Justin mentioned resilience, yet determination, resilience, commitment, the commitment that our students have to show if they, a lot of them are studying alongside other responsibilities, and to be able to have that commitment where you're not necessarily attending class with your fellow students every day. So you've got to really be determined and organise your day and plan your studies ahead. And these are the soft skills that every single employer out there will really value, and it's just a natural part of the process. As you go through the learning outcomes in each module, you'll develop these skills. And yes, but time management, I said, it's a big part of the initial discussions we have. Many students can and do work full-time and study full-time. It's a challenge, and people just need to understand the reality of what we're taking on here. So that's the main driver, I think, is you will have to be organised, plan ahead, be committed, be determined. And hand on heart, I'm blown away by what our students can do. I really am. To be able to manage all that over sometimes years and years and years, managing all these other responsibilities, it's astounding. It really is.
Absolutely. And it's the commitment that we see and the ability to motivate themselves and to manage their own learning. It astounds me. Although it's one of the reasons I love doing what I do. Our students, the age range of our students goes the full spectrum. My youngest student was 15. So I actually had a 15-year-old student taking part doing the business degree very successfully. My oldest student was 65, about to retire, and wanted a degree before they finish work. So we are supporting students right across the range, and these skills being developed, some of them are for work, some of them are for personal interest, but great to see them being developed. Just want to pick up on something that Justin talked about earlier, which was working with employers to give work experience and internships. So this wasn't something I was fully aware of, to be honest, Justin, before we had our chat. So could you tell us a bit about how the OU works with employers to give some of this work experience?
Yeah, so thanks, Robert. We work. We've got like an employer engagement team, which is part of the career service, and they work closely with loads of employers, throughout the country and abroad. We do offer loads of opportunities for work experience and internships. Increasingly, especially since the pandemic, we've engaged with a lot of employers to offer remote and virtual internships. So, these are basically, work experience opportunities you can do from home and online. So, that's been a big increase of, kind of our offer at the moment. And as I say, we're increasingly working with employers right across the spectrum. We also work with the Open University itself. We're offering some internships, from the actual university. And these are great ways of, developing experience. And as I say, on top of that, doing things like volunteering. So we advertise volunteering opportunities on there. If you go to our website, you can find loads of other, kind of places where you can find volunteering opportunities. So it's worthwhile, having a look at, kind of what sort of things are out there, what sort of, things you can get involved in. And as I say, I think earlier you were talking about a student doing forensic psychology. So they might be looking at, kind of volunteering opportunities where they can get involved, supporting vulnerable people, things like that. So, there's a lot of opportunities out there that support with that as well. And something that's worth mentioning is that our support is available throughout their course and up to 3 years after they leave university. So, really important, even if you're still struggling after you finish your course, do get in touch with us, do use the resources and do, kind of utilize what's there. Mm-hmm. And also, on top of that, another thing to maybe, have a look at is your study homepage. There's loads of kind of career resources under the Succeed tab there. And there's also a thing called Future You, which is an online tool to kind of assess your skills and, kind of career development so far. So it's worthwhile, just having a look at some of the resources that are available to help you with things like that.
We do have a question, Justin, about self-employment, because a lot of our discussion here has been about how employers would engage with the OU, how they would help students or graduates to get a job. What sort of advice do we give regards self-employment? Is there anything specific that you can point them to, any resources if they wanted to start up their own business?
Yeah, so we do talk to students who are looking at being self-employed and, give advice around that. Also, it's worthwhile having a look at our website, because we do have some pages on self-employment and entrepreneurship. So there's loads of advice about, kind of setting up your own business. There's loads of resources, if you're looking at things like, kind of grants and funding, to help, kind of boost your business or get it going. We've kind of included, kind of websites and resources you can access to find out more about those. So it's really useful to, kind of get engaged with that and, talk to us about that.
Excellent. And I was involved in an Openlearn module called Starting Your Own Small Business. And that heads up, gives a head up on the different business structures, what's the difference between profit and net profit, and when do you have to start paying VAT, that sort of thing. So that's a free to sign up to little 12-hour course that runs you through the basics if you want to start a business yourself. So some fantastic contributions there. Hopefully we've covered a lot of things that people are interested in and wanted to know. But what I want to do now is I want to go back to HJ and see if there are any questions. I've kept back 10 minutes so we can answer any questions from the chat. Is there anything that you would like us to cover specifically or anything you would like us to touch on?
So we're just having a great conversation in the chat. There's no specific questions, but now's your chance. All the way through, we're happy to take your thoughts, comments, and questions. So let us know while we're having a little chat about what we've been speaking about, if there's anything burning on your mind. But we've been having a think in the chat about some of the skills we're picking up from OU Study that we've mentioned as well, that employers appreciate. And Sinead said motivation to complete a task is a big thing that she learnt while studying. You're studying from October to June. You can study over 6 years. You're studying part-time alongside family life. And motivation is a big thing to keep you going. And employers can see that when you're studying with the Open University, how much hard work when you're doing it alongside family life, alongside another job that you're doing. So that's definitely something that shines through with OU students and graduates. And Sinead also said a good thing is accepting setbacks too. So life happens, things happen while you're studying. You may not get the TMA score what you want, but accepting it and knowing how to use it effectively and move on. And I think that's a great thing for Sinead to point out, that we need to keep in mind of these key skills. And Penelope came up with an excellent point that this is the beauty of part-time study. You've got time to think about your career. And Penelope said, the OU has really helped me to focus and address procrastination. And I think when we're talking about volunteering opportunities, getting experience, we can do this all alongside our study. And the fact that some of us may work alongside our study as well means that we can find opportunities to put our learning to improve what we're doing now, and we can demonstrate that to our current employers or new employers on our CVs, which is fantastic. And one big thing that's coming through is people just didn't realize how much stuff there actually is available to us as OU students and graduates, which is great to hear. And I think the thing to remember is we may not all want it now. Some of us are starting out, some of us are in the middle or at the end. There may be different things we're focusing on and different times we need it. But the key thing to remember is that it's always there. And I've had a careers consultation myself when I finished studying. I had massive help in writing a personal statement, which I think helped me get the job that I wanted. So I can attest at how fantastic these one-to-ones are. And a lot of us didn't know about that. So I know we're really thankful for today's session and knowing about that. But one question that's coming through the chat is there any general advice on picking what modules to do next? I mean, we've talked about there's so many options where if we're not too sure about what our career outcome would be, and there's lots of things interesting at once, what would you say are some top things to do to maybe focus our thoughts and what we might do?
I think if we summarise the advice we've given about choosing your next module, what to do next. So, first of all, it's do the research. Hopefully what's come clearly through this is that there is lots of information out there. There are lots of resources that you can tap into, and there's lots of advice you can get. So do some research. Don't just assume that there is a natural order that suits everybody. You need to look yourself. You need to ask the questions. So you can contact the student support team or the careers advice team, and you can definitely talk through with them what you're hoping to get out of your modules, out of your qualifications, and they will help you to decide the right way for you. There isn't a single right way. You need to find the right way for you. Have a look at any specific requirements. If you want to become an accountant, there is a very clear way. There are a very clear set of qualifications and exams that you have to go through to become a qualified accountant. So some careers have got a very set pathway. Others are more broad. Others, there are different ways of doing it. I'm going to come to Ian with the last question for the session. So Ian, we spoke before the session about if an employer has two applicants coming for the same job, and they're both equally balanced, one's got an OU degree, one's got a campus university degree. What would help? What would the employer do to choose between them? Why might they choose the OU graduate rather than the other graduate?
If we're talking exactly the same qualification at the exactly same classification, similar learning outcomes throughout. If I was that employer, and I couldn't choose between these two applicants, and one of them, I've got specific examples where this has happened. You know, a student who wanted to study law, never studied law before, studied it over 4 years, worked in a warehouse at nights for 4 years, and came out and got that law degree at the end of it. And if I had that applicant in front of me, never saw his children, we had 2 young children under 5, studying all the way through, working nights. If I had that applicant in front of me, thinking about what we've talked about, the soft skills, the commitment, the motivation, the determination, it would go a big way for me to help me make that decision, choosing between these two applicants. I can't say every employee is going to be the same. For me, it's very clear what kind of person you're employing here when they've shown that level of commitment over a series of, over a number of years. And yeah, as I said before, it always astounds me, some of the stories that I hear when I'm talking to our students.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Ian. That's brilliant. And thank you everyone for your insights and your contributions into how we should consider our next modules, what we're going to do next. So if I just bring the session to a bit of a close and try and summarise some of the key points. First of all, you'll have different reasons why you are studying with the OU. You'll have different motivations. It might be career, it might be personal interest. Those motivations might change as you go through, so you might need to be flexible. What we want you to take away from this, though, is there's help there. There isn't a single set pathway that you must follow. There's not a right way that everybody needs to go along, but there is a right way for you. And we have resources, we have experts, we have people that can help you choose that right way for you. The only people we can't help are the people that don't ask for help. If you don't ask us, we can't help you. If you ask us, even if we don't know the answer there and then, we know somebody who has got the expertise and the knowledge that you need. Lots of resources are available. The help centre, as we've said before, go to the help centre, put your questions in. Go to the careers website. There's lots of links there. So the OU hasn't got the monopoly on being brilliant. There are some other really good resources as well. And we're very happy to point you to really good resources. Openlearn, a fantastic free resource. I recommend it to teachers a lot to help them with their students and students who are studying, even if they're not studying with the Open University. The Openlearn resources are fantastic, so take advantage of them. But ultimately, we want you to make the most out of your qualifications. We want you to get the outcomes that you want to get. By asking a few questions, by doing a little research, by looking beyond the obvious, you should be able to take your studies in the direction that's best for you. And that's what we're there for. So call up student support, and if you're really lucky, you'll get Ian. And Ian can talk you through your options. He can talk you through how to take the next steps to get the information you need. Or why not consider one of these career discussions? Perhaps you haven't thought of that before. Perhaps you just assume that you've got to do it on your own. So we've got Justin's team that are there. Their reason for being is to help you to get the career that you want and that you deserve. So the one thing to take away from this, I think, is the help is there. If you ask for it, we can give it to you. So thank you everyone for taking part in the session. Any final comments? So we've got a couple of minutes left. So Ian, how would you like to sum up? Anything you'd like to say?
I think it's important as well when we're thinking about what to study and what module to choose and etc. Choose something you enjoy. Enjoy it. Choose a subject you're passionate about. This helps with your motivation that we've touched on before, the commitment to complete. If you're studying something that you're really not enjoying it, then also contact us and let's have a talk about that. But as Rob said, as Justin said, yes, if you need help, the advice and help is there. All you need to do is contact us.
And Justin, anything you'd like to say to sum up, to close?
I think, as you've said, Rob, just use all the resources and help that's out there. Don't worry, even if you're not sure exactly what you want to do. Don't be put off by, kind of getting in touch with us. And, as Ian says, choose something you enjoy. It's exciting, shaping your degree, shaping, potentially a new career. So, use the help that's out there, to support you with that.
Brilliant. And HJ, any final comments from the chat?
No final comments in particular, just everyone is so thankful for our fantastic guests joining us today and all the fantastic things and resources that we've shared. And I think from my own perspective as an OU student, I think it's normal to feel like a bit overwhelmed and there's a lot there, but just remember, it's all to help you and it will be there when you're ready for it.
Thank you, HJ. So I'd just like to say thank you to Ian and to Justin and to HJ and to Robbie and Chan on the chat. It's been a great session. Thank you very much. And if you've enjoyed today, we've got 2 more tomorrow. They're putting me back in my box for some Student Hub Live workshops tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. So feel free to come and join in. We will be talking about cake and chocolate. So thank you very much and have a good, I was going to say have a good night, but it's still the daytime. So have a good afternoon. Thank you very much.